So we are ready with the question answer round?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, good. I can't see Dr. Suresh anywhere. Is he with us? Of course, he's the host.
Ma'am, there's a
Is there?
in my place.
Okay.
So you can. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
Yeah, fine. Fine, ma'am. Dear participants, I think I welcome on behalf of you as well as from the Department of Psychology, American College, Dr. Singh for this wonderful session on question and answer. Yesterday we had 2 sessions. We are not able to conclude because many of you have many questions to relate to online safety and adolescents' mental health. Today with us, I requested ma'am, she accepted our invitation with us now. You can put your questions with the expert, please. You can unmute your mic and then you can ask the question directly to the expert. So welcome. Welcome, ma'am, for this session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Hope you're doing well.
Yes.
Can I ask, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
No. Ma'am, I can't see you.
You can't see me. Maybe you have to.
Now I can see. Yeah.
Okay.
Ma'am, yeah. Yesterday you did a comparative study between French students, French adolescents and Indian adolescents. And in that you said that Indian adolescents are more in number who are using internet, and also cyberbullying is happening to them more. Why do you think that is the reason? First question. And second is, what can we learn from the French people, the strategies to adopt so that is minimized, the bullying, cyberbullying or going on to the internet is minimized?
Okay. So because we were also intrigued by these findings, and we were also interested in knowing that why are these differences visible. So the major point of difference, or the reason for difference, was because most of the Indian adolescents, they are the they were the their parents were not well trained to use technology. They had not been using technology a lot, and it was the children only who introduced the parents to the world of internet, to the world of social media. And whereas in French countries, most of these parents, they were quite aware, and they already had a lot of information, and they were using internet, they were using social media for their work, for their daily lives, for other commercial activities, for banking and all. So because these kind of parents who themselves have been using internet for many things, they tend to have a lot of discussion with the kids. They tend to keep on advising the kids. There's a lot of media literacy, the word we use, where the parents keep on sharing information about the right use of technology with the kids. So it's more like a kind of interaction between the parents and the children, where the children are in discussion with the parents. They explore the media and they learn a lot about media from their parents. Whereas in case of Indian children, they had learned it from their peers and from here and there, from their own self-exploration and all. So majorly what we concluded was that it's very important that the parents keep discussing the right usage of media, the social media and the internet usage with their children, because there has to be a very strong and healthy communication between parent and child regarding the right use of media. Otherwise, children, when they learn it on their own or through hit and trial, they might end up in a soup, and might end up in a trouble somewhere. So it's basically the role of parents, which was highlighted by the study. So the parents need to be aware, they need to be well informed, and in case of first generation users, there are going to be a lot of problems.
Teething problems. One more question added to that. Mostly in India, we are open to strangers, not only on the internet, even otherwise also, face-to-face interaction also, we open up so much to the strangers, thinking that they may not harm us. Because if we go and open up into our peers or our relatives or anything, they may backbite us or something. They may use it against us again. So we tend to reveal our personal things to a stranger, but not in the European countries and US. Why is it so, ma'am?
Ma'am, these are the cultural differences, because India is a collectivistic society. So we've always been living in a commune, and we've had families, extended families, and the children who are raised in villages. As they say, it takes a village to raise a child. Whereas in the West, it's usually one parent family or even one person family. So there's a lot of cultural differences. And I think because of that thing, because of being collectivistic society, where we always feel that the group is more important than the individual, we have a kind of a unsaid trust between, and that's what we are always encouraged to do, to live for others, to have a community living. Even our religion and all, we're always when a child is seeing all his parents doing work for all the religious institutions and helping people, helping strangers. So there's a kind of unsaid trust, a lot of trust built up in the child's mind that yes, the world is a good place. And so that kind of attitude, which is actually I would say not that bad, because pro-social behavior is actually good for one's own mental health. But when it comes to internet safety, and of course you have to be careful about you need to know the red flags, where you need to know the red signs that yes, the danger lies here. So on internet, it can be very, very harmful for the kids, especially like meetings, talking to strangers, that's fine. It can be a catharsis for somebody, but the red flag would be when that a stranger asks the child not to tell it to the parents. Don't tell what I've been talking to you, or don't tell that you are in touch with me. And the biggest danger is, something which has really killed many teenagers in the West as well, when these strangers, they persuade the children to meet them in real life. There have been cases where they have been grooming. That particular behavior is called grooming, where they prepare a kid for sexual relationships slowly, and ultimately they say either they start blackmailing the kids. Actually, there have been cases where kids have been forced to reveal their parents' CVV numbers, because they say that we're going to tell your parents, we're going to tell your teachers, or we're going to leak all your chat to your friends, to your teachers, to your parents, and all the pictures you've been sharing with us, all the confidential information you've been sharing with us. So either the kids, they are compelled to reveal their parents' credit card numbers, or there's something called sextortion. That's the term which is being used, that asking the child to meet them alone somewhere, and as an extortion money, so the child has to please them with the sexual activities. So there have been cases, and in Western countries, the child helplines are quite active, and there have been many sting operations also, where the predators, they try to lure the kids into these things, but they were caught. But here in India, we need to inform the parents, we need to talk about all this, because talking about all this is a very sensitive matter. If you right away go to a school, or if you right away tell some parents that don't let your child talk to people or make friends online, because something like this might happen, the parents might look at you with a lot of anger, that what nonsense you're saying, how can this thing happen to me? And we know our kids. So we need to, that's what the psychologists here have to do, how to break the ice, because they are very sensitive issues, how to persuade, how to convince parents to talk, and what should be the right language, or what should be the right way to help the child understand the threats in the online world while maintaining the cultural parameters in mind.
Thank you very much.
Yes, next one is Ravi, M. Ravi. M. Ravi. Yes. Yes, Miss Jagadika. Jagadika. Yes, Jagadika.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you can. Dr. Damanjit is an expert on online safety, and he's a psychology professor in Punjab. If you have any questions related to that, you can ask us. Internet safety or cyber psychology related, any questions you have, you can provide. Yes, Ananya. Ananya. I think 1 minute. Ananya, can you able to hear me? Ananya Lakshmi, are you there? There is a problem with her. Problem in her
Hi,
connection.
sir. I am Selvi.
Yes,
Excuse
yes,
me. Myself Selvi. I
yes,
want to ask one question, ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Adolescent children, they are saying, ma'am, that why you are spending much time on internet. Then they are saying, do you want to make myself as a hero in the society, or do you want myself to be a zero in the society? And so definitely we know that they have to use it, but where we have to put the borderline, ma'am, because only through online mode, only through internet, we can learn many different things. But anyway, I don't know, as a parent, as a teacher, as a professor, I don't know where I have to put the limitation, restriction. Can you explain a little bit, ma'am?
Ma'am, of course, we cannot survive in today's world without technology.
Yes, ma'am.
Everything is online. Like today's experiment or today's webinar would not have been possible without internet. Yes, we do agree. But at the same time, as they say that excess of everything is bad, and we need to learn not only through the internet but experientially. There are many things, and use of technology is fine, but ma'am, it cannot be compensated for the real life. There have been studies where
Yes,
people thought that there were people who said, yes, I'm so happy today, I found my nursery class friend on Facebook, and I have so many friends on this platform, whatever. But ma'am, actually, the more you use this internet or online platforms or social media, the more lonely one gets. The real happiness or the real joy actually lies in the real world. And this needs to be taught to the children, that life is, there has to be a balance. A life is not about sitting in one room and just exploring the internet, because that is going to create a very vicious environment in their heads. They need to get away, get out. And as a developing child, we need to focus on our physical activities also, because health is a global thing. It is not just developing in one aspect of life, or doing well in one particular area of life. But as a growing child, we need to focus on physical
hello.
health. Hello. We need to focus, like as we say that life is a balance. A table cannot stand on one leg. So life is, if we can consider life to be a table, we need 4 legs for a table, and they all have to be in equal length. Otherwise, if they're just two legs of a table, the table will not be able to stand properly. And in case the 2 legs are very high and the other are two are very low, you cannot keep anything on the table. The things
Yes,
will
yes,
slide down. So one leg, as I have always talked in my sessions with adolescents, with growing children, that one is work. Like, of course, you're making assignments, you're exploring things, you're learning languages, you're doing many things on the internet, right? So one is your work, second is your relationships, and third is your health, and the fourth is spiritual development. So for a growing child, all these things, 4 things are important, and they have to be in the right balance. We cannot and we should not promote such a culture where the kids are totally overemphasized in one thing. We need to have a good physical health for our kids. We need to know them the importance of relationships in the real life, in the real world, to go out in the world and communicate with people, to get connected to people, and to be a very helpful and a useful member of society, to get connected to things that help others, to help others grow, teach others, and communicate with others. Then something about their spiritual development, which is again very important. And because all these areas, your work, your relationships, your health, your spiritual development, or spending time on one's own self, finding time to sit in silence and introspect and thinking about what exactly you want to do, what is the direction of your life. The stage is about identity formation. This adolescence, you need to think about yourself to find out what is the meaning and purpose of my life. So we have to encourage, we have to promote such a culture where the kids, they focus on all the aspects, and let's not kind of keep pressurizing them to keep following or chasing one thing in life, because everything is important, and the health is a kind of there's no health without mental health, and there's no health without physical health or spiritual health, behavioral health, or your healthy relationships. So all these things have to be kept in mind, because if the kids keep on following one part of life, it's like keeping all the eggs in one basket. One falls down, all the eggs will break. And God forbid, like I've seen, we know so many cases where the children, they even in IITs, they commit suicide. Like, so it's like they have to, because
Yes.
they've been focusing on one aspect of life. So encourage the kids towards being all rounders, towards chasing many things, getting interested, encourage them to develop interest in many things other just than the online world or the internet. There are many other aspects of life which they need to grow up into a beautiful individual and a useful individual for society. So we cannot be blind, just in running after our own personal successes, but we need to understand that we have to produce children, human beings who are an asset to the society, and for the coming times they have to work for this planet, for the people. So let's encourage them to be all-rounders, to pursue things of many interests and tastes.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, there is one more question from Ananya.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, yes, Ananya.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yes,
Am I audible?
yes, you can proceed.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So, ma'am, I worked as a school psychologist for a year, and I did a small presentation on cyberbullying and how to. Hello.
The others, please unmute your.
ஊர்ல வரும்போதே நார்மலா அப்படிதான் வருது. ஐ ஹேவ் அல்லது ஐ அந்த பாஸ்ட் டென்ஸ்.
Yes,
Hello.
yes, go ahead.
I'll continue. So, hi, this is Ananya, and yeah, I have a small question, ma'am.
இப்போ எனக்கு அதுதான் ஒரு டவுட். இப்போ ஸ்டோரி சொல்லணும்னால
Yeah.
இப்போ
Though
நம்மளுடைய
they-
Yes,
எழுதினாலும் பாஸ்ட் டென்ஸ் தான் எழுதணும்.
Though there are children who actually want to go and talk to strangers using social media just for the fun sake, I find students who actually go and chat with somebody, a stranger, just because they don't get the love from the parents. They just want to talk to someone or just want to share their feelings, wherein they end up getting into trouble. So I personally feel the parents are playing a very important role in this place. And instead of saying no, don't use your mobile phones or don't get into social media, I think more awareness should be given to the parents than because when I did a small presentation on cyberbullying, I found that it was like, what is there in using social media? How would I be really into trouble? uh, there was a child who came and spoke to me, said, if there is nobody in the world to talk to, then I prefer talking to a stranger than to not talk to someone. So that was the reply from somebody. Since I was there as a psychologist, I was able to help her, but there are a lot of kids who are in that stage where they are not able to share things to anybody. That's the reason I think they are going to do it. Do you want to say or add something to that, ma'am?
You're very right, Ananya. Most of the problems related to child's maladjustment, to most of the problems attributed to emotional and social health of the kid, or to any disorder of the kid, we can attribute it to the wrong parenting and the a lack of parents availability for the child's emotional needs. So definitely the children, when their emotional needs or the needs for being connected, they are not met, they go here and there, look for always trying to look for soft corners for people who accept them. And that is the basic reason, you know, when kids get alienated, obviously it's like nobody will live alone. Definitely you are slowly, you just you know, parent is like the sun and the kids are like the orbit. So it's the parental duty to keep the kids keep them revolving in their respective orbits. But when these gravitational forces, these bonds become loosened, the kids, they drift away, and they start gravitating or getting attracted towards like-minded people who validate them, people who are giving them a sense of comfort, a sense of being unique, acknowledging them and making them feel valued. And usually that is one of the reasons why these gangs, they come up, these terrorist groups come up, all these alienated kids. So this is what, as a psychologist, we have to always keep advising the parents that keep the kids bonded. We need to have very strong attachment patterns. And it was I discussed this study yesterday. We have actually found that the kids who have loose bonds with their parents, who have loose attachment bonds with their parents, they are the kids who get bullied. These are the kids who actually look for emotional comfort here and there. So a lot of responsibility rests on the parents. But as school psychologists, if we are able to identify, as school teachers, if we know that yes, there is a particular kid who is looking for attention, or who seems a little out of place, or seems little different from the other kids. So as teachers, as school staff, as school psychologists, we may try to play our role a little bit. And at the same time, the school teachers, the school counselors, they can keep having regular sessions during PTMs and keep on talking to parents about the importance of communication, of developing trust, of having a conflict-free family environment, a good amount of cohesion in the family, a good amount of trust. And of course, when a child is into adolescence, you have to give them some amount of autonomy as well. And so all these things, it is basically, there's a lot of work for the psychologists, especially in country like us, where there's been mostly the child rearing has been authoritarian. It has been a vertical control. So the kids, normally they drift away from such parental practices. They kind of they don't develop a very strong understanding relationship with parents, especially when the parents are very over controlling. They are they rebuke a child for every small thing, or where there's a lot of domestic issues, a lot of family violence, interpersonal conflicts in the family, and or the parent has some alcohol problem, or there's some other substance abuse, or there is some already running mental health problem in the parents. So such children are very vulnerable. They are the kids, they are what we should be always looking for, and we should be always always ready and willing to offer extra help and go a little extra mile for such kids.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for that.
Jagadika? Yes.
Yes, sir. Hello, ma'am. My question is that adolescence is a time where peer pressure plays a very major role. So, and we have parents in our with our cultural norms saying that technology and social media is always a curse for most of the time. So, the adolescents, they get stuck between the peer pressure and the parent pressure. They either get away, detached from the parent, or they get neglected from the peer. So how do you think an adolescent can manage these both?
Ma'am, being a parent of an adolescent, I always say it's like walking. Hello? Being a parent of an adolescent kid is like walking on eggshells, and you don't know which shell you might break. So this is a stage where, as I discussed earlier, is a stage of psychosocial changes, and the kids want emotional autonomy. And being emotionally autonomous is not that bad as it seems like, because as developmental psychologists, we feel that the kid has to be a little emotionally autonomous, has to kind of as we say, the lack of conflict, the total lack of conflict is not actually a very healthy sign. The children need to develop their own identity. For that, they need to de-idolize their parents a little and need to talk about what is happening in their lives and question what is right or wrong, what their parents have been doing, whether they want to be like their parents, whether they want to be the mirror images of their parents. So in short, de-idolization of parents is, to some extent, it is considered as a healthy sign for a developmental, as considered by a developmental psychologist, that these things help a child to develop his or her own identity. So, but it has to be in the right balance. So the parents should not freak out, or they should not get worked up if the child is drifting a little towards the peers, because the peer group is the first platform where the child will now assert his or her identity and know about himself or herself. The child will experiment his newfound skills, his new interpersonal skills, and through a lot of discussions, through a lot of explorations, which the peers are aiding in, they are helping him in developing, he will ultimately construct a healthy identity, his own sense of identity. For otherwise, if the child keeps on parroting the parental ideas, he'll just be a photocopy of the parents. So little amount of conflict, little amount of drifting away, and getting little amount of attachment and validation and support from the peer groups is actually very healthy. Because if we want our kids to have an independent identity, their own mindset, and experiment healthily with life, they need the peer support. So peers are not that bad, but we have to be very cautious about the activities of that peer group. So this is what we need to be worried about. What kind of peer group it is, what is their ethos, what are their favorite activities, what exactly they do when they're together, what they think alike, and what are the parents, what kind of family environment is that like. The parents need to know the family environment of the kids their children is being friends with, and what kind of ethical values those parents have. So that is what we need to know. That is what should our concern be, knowing about the mindsets of that peers and being aware that if they are together, what exactly their time utilization is like, what activities they are doing. So parents can keep a check through a little bit of questioning, but not totally creeping into the child's life or being like a kind of a helicopter parenting. So as a developmental psychologist, we always advise that yes, the child needs space, which is actually good for his psychosocial development and healthy identity formation. But in short, we need to monitor the activities of the peer group.
Yes, ma'am. We are having 3 more questions, and then, dear participants, we are having less than 10 minutes for this session. So be quick with your questions. And next, Dr. Chandra, followed by Dr. Harun.
Hi, ma'am.
Yes, hello.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah.
you are.
I'm Chandra. Thank you for your time in explaining about different kinds of parenting for the previous question. But my question is, before the technology became humongous, still we were able to meet the educational needs and demands, isn't it? Gapping their learning, 1. 2, are we able to still handle their demands without these kind of gadgets?
Ma'am, that is a very interesting and a very debatable question. If you ask from a psychologist, that will be a totally different answer. But if you ask this thing from the people who are developing video games and who are developing these apps, they might give you a very different answer. But I totally agree with you that we do not need to, if we look back during our times when we were doing PhDs, we did so much of work. There's nothing that we missed. We did everything on our own, going to libraries, exploring all these abstracts, and even cleaning up those research journals which were not touched for many years. This is what my journey was like. And today, if I see my PhD students, they are usually spoon-fed by the technology, and they have usually missed upon a number of important things. So I would personally, I would say there's not much that you can miss because everything is there. But keeping in mind the mad rat race and the fear of missing out, so that is so much there in the mind that probably the child who thinks that he doesn't have this particular learning app, even as young parents, the new parents, they are crazy after buying educational apps for their kids and all. So there's a lot of fear of missing out, which I think because these companies, these corporates, they have created such a fear in the mind that probably your kid will not be an Einstein if you don't use this particular app, or the child will lag behind in development. So I think the industry, the business, the corporate houses, and as we know, this American Psychological Association has already said that below 2 years, we should not allow any gadget to the kids. And after that, till the age of 18, it's just 2 to 3 hours of screen time. But as I said yesterday also, whatever we were always warning our kids against, now we are encouraging them. All the kids are occupied online for at least 7 to 8 hours every day. And we always were telling them not to use the internet. Even APA was always advising it against it. So yeah, definitely don't give so much to the child. And as I suggested earlier, there are many other ways in which the education can reach home, and experiential learning, field works, field visits, exploring through different senses. That is what actually we are just missing out on. And we're just trying to produce zombies and people who are just photostat copies. So as a developmental psychologist, it really troubles me. It really it's a big thought question to me, that what kind of kids are we producing who just know how to interact with the computer, who just know how to interact with the mobile phone, and in real life they don't know how to talk. We know I've seen kids who cannot converse with others because they're not used to talking. They're not getting enough training to talk to others because they all the time is on internet, and probably they don't even know the right facial expression for a particular emotion. All that they know is sending emojis. They know about the emojis, which emoji is for frowning, which emoji is for laughing, and so on. But in the next coming years, psychologists are predicting that human beings will forget. They will not know which particular facial expression to give for which particular emotion. So these are a lot of challenges. But yes, we as social scientists, we have to keep working. We have to work against all these corporates and all these consumer houses, the companies which are the multinationals. We have to keep raising our voice. Recently, I've been reading articles where gaming disorder was, there was a lobby which wanted that it should be considered as a disorder, and they were pressurizing APA to consider that as a mental health disorder. But all these companies which are making video games, they were totally opposing this idea, because once considered as a gaming disorder, they're going to suffer a lot of business. So, but this is where the social scientists have to get together and always keep raising our voices against such things, so that we just don't end up producing kids who are totally emotionless and who have fears of the real world.
So nice, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Actually, we are having more questions for your session. If you extend your time for another 40 minutes, you can come back again in the same link. I think as of now, around 6 members are in the queue.
Okay, I can try.
Yes, ma'am, we will, and the session we will end right now. We'll come back again in the same link. Dear, next one is Dr. Arun, followed by Karanjot Singh. Yes. Dear participants, come back to the same link. We will have a question and answer session.